Can you hear us now?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Could you hear us before?
No.
Well, I've opened the meeting and we did start a roll call of folks who are here, so we've gotten to
Dory Boyd,
Dory Boyd.
Here.
Ross Terry, Jessica Parker here, David Mathai, Marissa Cook Obregon,
Here.
Michael Doherty, Lucas Karen, Maria Michael,
Hold on, she's coming in right now. And looks like Scott Lehman.
Here,
Pat Jubb is here too.
I'm here, yeah.
Patrick
Pat Jubb,
and Maria Michael.
Maria Michael? No?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, she's here. She just signed in.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Excellent, good turnout. So for first order of activity here on the agenda, public comment and dialogue. No one present in the audience and probably no one other than committee online.
Nope, there's a few.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Anybody
Diane.
raise a hand with comments?
Not yet.
Okay,
Diane and Sabrina are online as guests.
okay. All righty, we'll proceed to old business. And first item I have is organization of the October community visioning sessions. And we have a hard copy handout here at the meeting. I don't know how we can facilitate anything with people online. Basically, it's a summary of the assignments for the October 13th and October 15th sessions. And I just start out with the various titles of jobs or activities that need to be taken care of. The one I had added was a greeter who would be by the door in the front lobby just to welcome people and sort of direct them either to the registration table or over to a table for child care sign up. So right now, those two slots, the Thursday and the Saturday slots, are empty. So if there's someone who is not, I'll continue on, I guess, with the other tasks, and we'll come back to seeing who's available to do such a thing.
Does that have to be a committee member or could it be a layperson? So to speak?
I guess it doesn't have to be a committee member, if we don't have anybody. But if you're, willing to volunteer your wife or.
That's kind of what I was thinking, but.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's cool. Yeah, so at the registration table, we'll have on Thursday, we'll go through first, October 13th. In the evening, Bert Hansen and Dave DeLaurie. And we'll have a table there, and probably one of you would handle like the pre-registration people who have already indicated online that they're going to, be participating. So we'd have a list of those people and you could just check them off and then direct them to another table where we'll have some information laid out, paper, hard copy for people to use during the meeting. On Thursday evening for refreshments, John Goddard is going to handle that. It'll be pretty much a basic layout as far as some drinks, cider, coffee, water, and probably some dessert type things, donuts and some other items that maybe will be provided by Barb Westcott. Hosting the meeting would be Ken Camilla and myself. The virtual hosts actually would be John Goddard and Doug Moglen. So basically, they're facilitating the virtual breakout room as that evolves. Everybody would be together, of course, during the main part of the meeting with the presentation by Ken. And then the rest of the agenda break out and then come back together with the summaries. And then go ahead,
And I have to
Randy.
make a correction, so I was gonna be a virtual host on that Thursday, but not the Saturday. So I
On Thursday, okay. So I'll put you in on,
John, those duties.
so you and Doug. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Randy Brown. So you and Doug, and I'll cross you off for Saturday. We're gonna ask Ken Stomsky to come for AV support and electronic support. No, you're shaking head.
I reached out, was not available.
Oh, okay.
You may be looking at your 5 minutes of initial silence. AV assistant.
So we can cross that off.
Doing that stuff over there. Yeah. We can bring some.
So we'll just cross, we don't have anyone that would do that, I guess, other than Mr. Goddard.
Capable staff.
Okay. The in-person breakout facilitators, Ken Camilla, Marcus Phelps, Norm Cheever, Marisa Cook Obregon, Jessica Parker, and Dave McWilliams. So I'm expecting we would have in person 3 breakout groups. So we'd have the way the rooms are becoming available or unavailable. On Thursday night, we'd have 2 breakout groups in this room. One, in the far corners, and then a breakout group in the front lobby. We'll have chairs available that can be set up. So we'd have 3 areas for the breakout, and that with the 6 people, then we'll have teams of 2. So we can have a facilitator and a recorder. And last indication we had, Ken Camilla is going to provide some stands and flip charts. So, the recorder will just write down cryptic statements that the people in the group would make. So the recorder, it's an important job. You got to kind of, somebody goes on for quite a while speaking, but you kind of have to capture the nuggets of what they're saying. And once they see it up there and they're comfortable with it, then, you can proceed on with listening or hearing from somebody else in the group. Finally, childcare, Barb Westcott and Roz Terry. And I did get an email today from Barb Westcott. She's doing a great job. For Thursday night, she has 4-H people coming to help with the childcare. So John, myself, and Megan looked at the community center down on the lower level with Dave Sutton today, and it's an excellent space. They have children's toys down there. They have, play area. So they have a bathroom right there off the room. So it's a great setup. Basically, we have the childcare sign in here, and then they can go out the door if the weather's not too bad, or they can walk through the building and go to the lower level, however they want to work it. So 4-H folks would help on Thursday evening, and on Saturday, a Cub Scout group is going to help. So that should be pretty well under control. I think right now we just had 2 children that were indicating, or parents indicating they had 2 children. So we'll see at, next Tuesday, we'll have a better idea of what we're doing as far as numbers. So that takes care of Thursday evening. For Saturday,
Before we go on,
go ahead.
it's relevant to Thursday, I do have a hand raising notice.
oh, Marissa, okay. Hello, Marissa.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Just a question, a point of clarification. In terms of the food that we're offering, could we just confirm that we're offering food? I thought we had agreed to kind of offer like dinner foods, beyond just like cookies or baked goods for the Thursday evening session. And I asked because we've also been advertising it as such online. So could we clarify that point before going on to Saturday, please?
Okay, so what are we saying refreshments, or we're indicating more like sandwiches and that sort of thing?
We had said, well, I've been advertising it as food and refreshments, because I thought we had agreed that Thursday we'd be offering food, seeing that it starts at 6:30 and possibly goes till about 8:39, kind of covering the dinner time.
All right, we can do that. We had planned for Saturday to get some, what is it, John? Meats and, rolls, from Big Y. So we could just do the same thing on Friday.
For Thursday.
I mean, Thursday. Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then I guess for Friday, or rather, sorry, excuse me, for Saturday morning. For Saturday morning, I think we had been kind of pushing it as kind of more breakfasty food since it starts at 9, but yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking we would have just more like, again, something light, and then have at the meeting ending at 11:30, we would provide that meat and rolls type of thing at the
Oh,
end.
that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea.
But we're
Yeah.
saying food and drink, food and refreshments.
Food and refreshments and drinks. Yeah, just kind of general, yeah, just would want to make sure that we are aligned with what we're saying. And I'm assuming that some people may come on Thursday knowing that it'll kind of be like a working dinner session, and that might incentivize it if they know, of course, that they'll be fed and can just kind of work through that time, and not have to worry about dinner. So thank you.
All righty. So let's see, then we move on to Saturday, starts at 9 a.m. Registration, Bert Hansen and Dave D. Delory again. You guys will be well trained and up to speed on that.
Well, Marcus,
Yeah.
just a quick question while.
Speak up, please.
Yeah, how do you feel about, name tags?
Oh, excellent point. I thought about that after we talked this morning or whatever, so we should add that to the list. Name tags and some markers for people put their name on.
Adhesive one?
Pardon?
Adhesive one?
Yeah, I think those would be good enough.
Nobody says one.
They're just gonna last a couple hours.
And then just one, we talked a little bit about the pre-registered people, but obviously we're gonna wanna capture information about the sort of walk-ins, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Sign sheet and-
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll have a sign-in sheet for the walk-ins and, just get the basic information from them, so we can add them if they want to continue to be involved, get their email address or
Right.
their mailing address or whatever. Yeah. Good comments. Thank you. Saturday, refreshments, Megan Lightcap is going to facilitate that part of it. Bring the food and handle it that day. Meeting hosts will be Ken Camilla and Marcus Phelps. Virtual hosts will be John Goddard and Dory Boyd. And we scratched the electronic and AV support. In-person facilitators will be about the same, yeah. Ken Camilla.
I will not be here on Saturday.
You will not be here on Saturday. Okay. So we have Ken Camilla, Marcus Phelps, Norm Cheever, Marisa Cook Obregon, Jessica Parker. And we need another person if possible. Anybody else out there online? Who else do we have? Anybody else available? Or I'll
Is there
have to
anyone
drop-
from Pioneer Valley available?
Yeah,
Oh,
I have
yeah.
some staff, and when I saw this email, I said, oh, that's great. You have a lot of volunteers already. But I do have someone from PVPC, with me on Saturday.
Okay, is there a name we can put in here or?
It's Jacinta Williams.
I didn't get that.
Jacinta Williams,
Oh, boy.
Jacinta.
John's
Jay?
already ahead of you. He's got it in the doc.
All right, I'll put PPC. All right, that's great. Will you, jumping back to Friday, Ken, will you have anybody with you on Friday?
On Thursday,
No,
I-
Thursday.
I'm still, I have someone that is available via Zoom. But I also am waiting for one more person to see if she's available for the Thursday in person. I'll let you know tomorrow.
All right. Well, that'll give us, plenty of flexibility. Let's see, and then the childcare, again, it's Barb Westcott and Roz Terry. So they're probably gonna work out, one will do Thursday and one will do Saturday. I already mentioned the in-person breakout rooms. We'll need to have 2 areas in the auditorium and use the front lobby. I had written down here, and I don't know if there'll be some more discussion. The virtual breakout control room would be the conference room number 2 near the elevator here in Town Hall. So my thought was, the 2 people who are hosting the virtual breakout would go into that room and run the session. However, it's going to be facilitated, whether, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission will be somehow able to be a facilitator of that. And then we have, of course, a need for a recording or somehow recording the comments, typing them on the screen or whatever, so everybody can see them.
I think where we landed, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Speak up, please,
Yes.
Mr.
Here
Goddard.
we are. I think where we landed the last meeting, and somebody correct me if I'm picking the wrong sentence out of that, is that, the same, we'll still have a physical board in that room to write down those comments, so that we're not asking participants, who may not be familiar with other online participation tools to do that. So they'll just be unmuting, speaking, and muting, hopefully, the same as they have been since perhaps prior to COVID. or at least
Okay.
after.
Old school,
All right. Pen to pad,
can't go wrong.
pen to
Keep
paper,
Keep it, exactly.
and masking tape to hang it up. Okay, that gets us through the initial run. Now we're back to, is there anybody or,
I have one hand, up. I just don't.
Oh, one hand.
recall if there was-
Yeah.
See, I have something to say or.
Yeah.
Remaining.
oh,
Versus.
I-
you have-
I had my hand up.
Oh, I guess. my
Dory,
hand's up.
Dory.
So I thought the virtual hosts were going to be remotely. So if I need to be there in person, I'm not available.
Well, we're gonna. Sorry, so you can certainly be remote and be a remote host. There'll also be one of the remote hosts will be in town hall
Okay.
to host anyone else who is remote. And
And then I thought we were just sharing a screen. So like, I'm going to type up so people can see it. We don't need to physically write on a whiteboard because that'll be hard to read with the computer. So I envision doing exactly what John's doing right now.
Okay,
we can exactly do that if you wish.
if that works with the method that the PVPC presenter would be utilizing the screen. Any thoughts on that, Ken? So let me jump it in, Marcus.
No, I think that, as we talked at the last meeting, I think it made sense to the committee that they wanted to be able to see their words on the screen as they were being typed. I think it's just going to be, up to whoever, either the person that is sharing the screen and typing, and the facilitator to, just remind folks of the questions. I think that's the biggest thing. It's going to be reminding people of the questions that they're supposed to be answering. We'll do a quick brief slide in the presentation where I'll state what the questions are. But once you get into the virtual rooms, it's going to be up to those in the breakout rooms to remind the participants of the questions that they're supposed to answer. So maybe what I can do is either create a Word document that has those questions posted and on like a single page, and the person that is taking notes can just refer to that. And then there'll be some optional questions towards the end if time, allots.
Did we have another hand? I know we had Dory. That was,
I just had one question. I
Okay.
think it's for Ken. The Zoom.
Yeah.
You should set those up now, right? So that we have them and we can share those on
So
our account.
yeah, so John set up a Zoom through the Southwick link, and I just created a tiny URL that you can share with the people that have either responded or have said that they were interested in coming. It's not requiring a registration. It is open to the public. So people that want to show up on either Thursday or Saturday would have access to tinyurl.com/Southwick Visioning. That's what I have for the URL, and I can share that with John.
Someone online would have to be also capturing like a registration of some sort or an attendance.
are we going to be able to capture who's participating online?
Did you enable the chat?
I can make sure it's.
Make sure the chat's enabled, and we'll have people type in their name, address, and email
Great.
and phone number,
Good.
like we used to do. Some of the planning board ones in this meeting, for example, doesn't have chat enabled, but
Are people gonna want to share their email with everybody else on the chat? Because I don't want to.
oh, you can send it to the host direct. You can
Okay.
send the chat to the host direct.
Do you think the average citizen can?
Yeah.
This is so this was a question that I had talked to John initially about whether or not the town wanted to require a pre-registration. If you want to create that pre-registration, you would have to put in those fields, an email, and I don't know if any question, but I know at least an email. And that way the email would provide that person that registered a very specific link. So that would require someone to click the link. There's going to be multiple steps to getting this link. The discussion that I had with John, and this is something that many of the communities that I have worked with in the past, is they just want an open link. They want to click a link. They want to use a QR code that says that is a very simple address. So that may require some filtering for the people on the Zoom call to ensure, and in my presentation, my initial conversation, because it's both in person and over Zoom, right? Because there's a PowerPoint that needs to be shared with those on Zoom, is some Zoom etiquette, not necessarily for those folks in the room, but like to ensure that you're labeling if you belong to an affiliation with the town or you're a resident, you put your name and your affiliation. So that's a way to at least get an attendance list online without having to go through the registration process. So that was, I think, an option that was considered.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I was
Mr. Mogul.
I was conferring with Mr. Goddard quickly, and he confirmed my hunch. we have to post these meetings as meetings in the master plan sub, and they're subject to open meeting law.
Correct.
So
We discussed
we
that.
can't
and-
necessarily require someone to, and you can come here and observe a meeting and you don't have to.
Right. It's just open and we can tell people, if they don't want to share their email, they don't have to. They can still participate.
Correct.
Yeah. Keep it as simple as possible, but we will post formally notice of both meetings, and that way people actually will see the Zoom sign in. The only other blank there was the greeter, and what I'm thinking is, we've got these facilitators available. And they're not gonna be needed at the beginning, so anyone from there could stand out and greet, such as Dave McWilliams, who's a very congenial fellow.
I love greeting people.
Yeah.
I like seeing them leave too, but I like greeting them as well.
So maybe for Thursday evening, since you will be here, you could be the greeter. And
Can I have a partner? Can we be a
absolutely,
greeting team?
oh yeah, yes,
We'll teach you the
Perfect.
nuances. I'll be
perfect.
your greeting mentor.
That's perfect.
All right,
Sure.
and for Saturday morning,
He'll be ready to fly on his own.
maybe Jessica Parker, if you would like.
Sure.
All right. And if you would like to team up with somebody, maybe we can have Maria come. Anyway,
Yeah,
That
I
would-
think I could do that the morning.
that'd be wonderful. Perfect. All right. I think we have got through this pretty much.
Out of curiosity, how many people are registered so far?
Pass it over to John or maybe Marissa, right? You've been having monitoring that.
Yeah, last I checked, it was about 25 people. That was about 2 days ago. And that's
And that's-
between both days.
Right, between both days, yeah.
Does it indicate if they're coming in person or remotely?
Yes, I'd say the majority are in person right now. Of
Thanks.
course, thank you.
Okay, I think that covers the visioning sessions. We'll keep going forward on the agenda here. The next one was continuation of public outreach. There was some thought about moving the big sign from the old library over to the junction of 57 and 202, where there's about 30 political signs. I guess we could just put it right on the edge of the road and block out maybe 3 or 4 of them. We might get some pushback. As an option, I'm wondering if we would be able to put something on the town crier sign, that digital sign up by the bank, and maybe put the big sign opposite the sheep pasture on Depot Street, like we had it before. Any thoughts from folks?
Probably better down next to in the center of town with all the other 100 signs.
Yeah, there's way too much going on.
Yeah, it's good if you have it like at a stop place or where people have a few seconds to read it, you know?
What about like across the street from the entrance of the high school? So people coming in and out of school or coming out.
Well, there is one now at Powder Mill and Feeding Hills. So,
But the way the direction is, you can really only read it if you're coming out of Hartford,
right,
right? If you're on College Highway. We're not repeating.
Do we have two of them?
we have two of the big signs.
I'm in favor for the last week that we have to attract people to put it by those political signs. I mean, the Harvest Festival for Granville's been there, and it does stand out from the other small signs, so I don't think we lose anything. And I mean, it's a stoplight. People need a chance to read and see those dates and times.
I was also going to suggest, what about over by Big Y?
Another busy corner.
That would also
Yeah,
be-
we haven't put anything down on that south end. Which direction are you thinking, Dory? What were your thoughts?
Probably so the people on College Highway see it. Like going from the center of town towards Big Y.
Okay. I can picture that corner, so it'd be the southwest corner.
I can't find my way out of a paper bag, so I'm going to trust you that it's the southwest corner.
That's the big Y corner.
It's the job lot
Yes.
slash big Y corner.
I'm with you.
Okay. Any other suggestions? I mean, I think the town crier, we should try to, we have control of that. We could, you know, put up
Which one?
the town crier at the Berkshire Bank place.
We could ask the usual suspects again with digital signs if they would
Oh,
something.
yeah. Yeah. And I know John has talked to the police department about their portable sign. The idea was put that at the DPW garage.
It was there as of yesterday or today. There's no message on it, but it's there.
It's charging up with the sun.
Right.
Okay, so it's there, but it's charging.
Maybe.
Randy, what about
Maybe.
putting something like that at the town? On the way out or on the way into the town?
Yeah.
You know, particularly on Saturdays, when we say Tuesdays or another busy day.
You want to take one with the big sign, that's right there Saturday?
I just think you get
That's
so much
awesome.
traffic going in and out of the dump on Saturday. You're gonna, and you have to live in town to go there.
In theory.
So we have three locations, potential locations
Well, I think
for the big
Chris is
signs.
right, to have it at the center. The Harvest Fair will be over this weekend. So hopefully that sign will be gone. So how about if we have the one at the transfer station on Saturday, and then move that sign at close of business on Saturday to back to the center.
Or it could take the one opposite Powder Mill Road and Feeding Hills Road, put that at the transfer station, and put the one up at 57 and 202. And then when the transfer station this weekend is done, to move that down to Big Y. We'll cover, we'll
That's why
take
you're
care,
the chairman. Mr.
that's, we'll
Chairman.
take care of everybody, and I'll move the sign.
Are we thinking about also the transfer station sign with the movable letters? That's always.
Right, that was,
Yeah, I think it's updated where there was a message about the survey.
Yeah.
And then I had them updated, so it just says, you know, don't forget about the master plan to the link to south2040.com. Or master plan update south2040.com.
And also, there's gonna be an article in the upcoming Southwoods. That hits people's mailboxes like 2 days or 1 day before Thursday. Pretty squeezy, needless to say. but,
Yeah.
You know, it's a few days, 3 or 4 days before Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
And then some, you know, something about what we're doing, you know, I think you can go to the meetings or not.
Okay, so, I'll move those two big signs around various places over the weekend and into next week. I did ask Mr. Goddard to make up a press release, which he is going to be doing soon.
Did it.
And it, you know, just hard hitting. We've got lots of text, but we may just want to use something very, you know, brief and to the point,
Pithy.
and share that with Marisa and I don't know who else would like the press release. We'll get it out to whoever will pick it up.
Is it possible
Okay.
for the schools to do a post on their Facebook page since they're hitting a lot of parents and teenagers?
I can make that happen.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. Jubb.
Glad I could help.
Do you need any text or anything like that? Mr. Goddard should be able, seems like we had a short, I know I had sent out a short little item on, and I don't know where that was gonna go. It was, you're invited to participate in one of the two similar visioning sessions held in person. Do you recognize that text at all? I don't know if you have that somewhere.
That
We'll
looks
get to-
familiar to me, but if I don't have it, I'll reach out tomorrow morning and then I'll just send a snippet of that to Amy McLaughlin and she can put it on the school Instagram and Facebook page.
Good. Yeah, if you need something, contact John. He'll be here, I believe, right, John? Tomorrow. Yeah.
Not, I will be able to be contacted.
Okay.
Not physically.
We'll be available.
I know how to find them.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, let's move along. New business. We have the analysis of community survey responses. And we had two things there I'd like to discuss this evening. First off, Ken, do you have any sense of where you're going with, you know, how that's coming along, the summary of those?
It's coming. The thing that I'm finding challenging, and I do have something else to share with you tonight with regards to data, because I just got that this morning. But the way that Norm Cheever had volunteered to assist with some of the free response for the final questions, there's going to be a lot of, especially with the last question where we're like, throw everything, including the kitchen sink, into this last response. And there are so many different points within those. It's hard to quantify, and B, whether or not asking for a quantity is important for certain questions, or if it's just getting some of the main threads that have been pulled. And if they're all unique, then just presenting the unique threads. So I have, for a couple of the I think it's the over 20 years, I have a frequency, and then I started to try to do something with the final question, and I am just at a loss with a way on how to present that. In other communities, and I asked the committee if it's appropriate to just find unique qualities about those answers, and within your possession you have what that raw data is, to use however you wish. But for the public facing document, it's how you want that to look, both for the final report and both for how that's incorporated into the master plan within the narrative, when we refer to, which will probably be referring to actual data points and data numbers that are in that document. But with regards to the free responses, they're all over the place. And, you know, some questions, some responses have multiple points that how, I don't necessarily know how to quantify that or show that, how that could be valuable to the committee.
Did we, I thought at one time we were talking about a word cloud, is it?
Yeah, I mean, you can do the word cloud, but you know, the word cloud also, and I tried that for one of them. It didn't turn out the way that I wanted. I think I have to just continue playing with the filters. Some of the words have to be navigated so that if there happens to be two words that make sense, if they're like a economic development, let's say that is something that's in the response, then you'd have to put that together, and that would show up. So there's a little bit of the massaging of the actual words so that it probably would make sense within a word cloud. But yeah.
Okay. The other thing is we wanted to have some time tonight for Norm to share what he had done with that question 33, I think it is, Norm. Are you
Originally 33, it's output 39. Changed originally.
so why don't we I'll let Norm discuss his approach to trying to get a handle on sort of a freewheeling answer to a survey question. And I don't know, how many of those type of questions did we have?
I have that on my presentation.
All right, thank you, Norm. Man.
Steal his thunder.
Oh. And here's Norm.
I have some handouts in case anybody feels they can't see it, but some of the stuff will be
Yeah.
small.
I know.
Huh? You might have noticed it. Okay. There's more. You might not have to turn around.
Oh,
Yes, please.
thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. There's another one here in case everybody else will see it on the screen.
Anybody online?
If you remember a year ago, you probably don't, we had to go around the table, give input on what we thought we could want to work on this project. And one of the things I mentioned I wanted to get involved was with data packaging. Nobody probably understood what I was talking about, but tonight we're going to learn about it.
We're gonna learn about data packaging.
Now, the good news, obviously, is we had 900 responses. And the bad news is, now we got 353 pages of data. What are we gonna do with it? How are we gonna make it impactful to the reader, impactful to the leaders of the town, to the committees that are gonna review it and try to make sense of it? And that's what my presentation is about tonight. How do we make it substantial, have substantial meeting?
Do we need to provide him with a microphone? So I don't know
Can you hear me online?
how it'll pick up on the recording. So,
It's a little
can hear.
mumbled, but we can hear him.
let's try, we do have a microphone available, hopefully. The other
I'm
thing
reading
is-
as we speak.
Now, first of all, I put on this, realized it's only a proposal. Not the direction that we're going, and it's only. So I took a look at the output question 39. It stated over the next 20 years, what you believe are the top 3 issues facing the town of Southwood relative to County Long Lake. And each person was allowed to give 30 responses. So we had the 900 surveys, those
46 pages of the 353, which is this response, 1,563 responses. Oh, my goodness, do we categorize that to make some meaningful information? So I started going through the 1,563, and I eventually developed 33 different categories that I thought were appropriate for them, and I stuffed all 1,563 responses into all of those 31 categories. Now, slides 5 through 7 show a parade of the 31 categories. And the cumulative total responses. In a minute, I'll explain the Pareto chart for those who do not know what one is. All of the original response numbers will still be available with this dissection. So Pareto chart is just a way of organizing and displaying data that has some meaning. It's a bar chart. And the length of the charts for the highest frequency are always to the left, and the lowest frequency are always to the right. In this case, is the number of times an issue was mentioned in the survey, that is our frequency. The bars are arranged with the longer bar to the left, as I already said, and the shortest to the right. You use a Pareto when there are many problems or causes, and you want to focus on the most significant. The basic philosophy of a Pareto chart is that 80% of the problems issued, or in our case, responses, are generated by only 20% of the category. So before I do this one, I'm now going to go to my first Excel sheet. Okay, this happened to be one of the categories of this particular question. That's a small one. It'd be easier for me to explain. Go ahead. You're going to share it. Okay, sorry. You share it. Sorry about that. There she is. Okay. So here, remember, they had three options to respond. So we had option 1 had 3, option 2 had 4, and option 3 had 2. So this is a very small one, but this is how all 31 of these were set up. Now, let me go to a slightly larger one here. Police. It's one of my categories. And you can see this one's a little longer. It's talking about anything from boats going too fast, people drinking on the boats, driving on the boats, not following procedure, not following laws. So this one I can choose to go to the chief and he can fix that. Okay. But you can see down the bottom all these other ones. You have water quality, and pollution, you have overdevelopment, you have weed control, non-residents, safety, lake access, litter, taxes, and it goes on. So then I went into a summary spreadsheet. And the one that had the most responses for all 3 categories was overcrowding. There were 357 total responses, which is the sum of all options. Okay, 22.8% of all responses to our population saying that we're overcrowded. Water quality was number 2 with 240. Pollution was number 3 with 118. Policing 111. As you can see, right going down the list how it goes. It doesn't mean that the items down below are insignificant. But for instance, there's one for roads that way down the bottom. I'm sure Randerson will. You know, and maybe you'll have a light bulb go off for him on that. There's one here for conservation. I'm sure the conservation commission. See. Okay. There's one here for oversight. For lake management, reviews and those comments. Okay. So all of those comments are available. But now they're no longer on one sheet. They're in each one of these
spreadsheets. So now I'm gonna go back to new share. Okay. So now we can go to the next chart here. So here is the Pareto of responses just for page one. Of those, of the top items, only page one, because I didn't think they all fit comfortable. So I got the quantity of responses on the left axis, and then you can see the Pareto, and they get down pretty small. I didn't do page two here, because I'm going to show you a different page, this graph with an addition. Now we have a green line on here, and this is the axis on the right hand side, which is the cumulative percent. Okay, so if you remember back to my discussion of the Pareto charts, 20% the categories cover 80% of the responses. Well, we don't quite do that here, but I think it was 12 items covered 80%. Okay, so I don't know if we use this method, if we need to put the cumulative percent on or not. Okay, but we can decide that later if we want to go. And here's page two of that chart, and you can see some pretty small responses. Okay, now normally, let's say you were in a manufacturing facility today, you did an analysis of all your defects and final inspection, and let's say that the overcrowding was let's say paint defects. There would be a team going out to the floor that would work that problem, solve it until it's gone. Okay. And then the second one might have been assembly areas. There's been a team put on that and go out and solve those and make it go away. So then you can start working on the small ones. But that's the philosophy of using Pareto. Now here, oops, the time's out here. Line just in case. Yeah, a battery went dead. We got a backup.
So I gotta ask for, I understand the blue bars coming up, the green line with numbers, what, those are percentages?
That's percentages, so let's go back to the first. If you remember correctly, I said overcrowded was 22.8% of all the responses. And I believe water quality was 15%. So you add those together, you get to 38. So then you would add the pollution to it, and you get 45%. Then you would add the policing to it, and you get 50%.
All right.
So it's cumulative.
Okay, yeah, okay.
This is awesome, Norm, by the way. This is
Mr. Moglen seems to be interested in this procedure.
slightly familiar. I never seen it used this way for this type of thing, but this is a great idea.
I have to ask, how's the data?
Very manual. Very manual.
Well, we have to think about it. Anyone so read there, debate. If you want to have an impact, we have to look at this for this, okay? And that chart's coming up here too. Reason I lost my page down a little bit here. That's why I said next year. So in this particular case, we got all 31 categories here. I think it gets a little crowded. And I recommend.
Where are we? Oh, this was the one.
This is the last two charts together without the cumulative line.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how my proposal discussed already discussed with the freehands, how do we organize those to maximize the input. This is the non-freehand, okay? You'll see in this section here, this is the part you saw in the report. Okay, it's very common, and Dan's already done it on some of those earlier conversations. We normally would combine the disagree, the agree, and strongly agree, and strongly and disagreed. So I kind of highlighted, keeping the original thing that Ken gave us. We can highlight a little bit more in a bigger bold print. Than the higher level of the addition of this. So I think this might be more impactful. So that was question 38A, this 38B done the same way, 38C done the same way, we go into the details. But I just offered this for a change and possibly more impact. Okay. And this last one was, you believe the lake is overcrowded with watercraft. See 426 strongly agreed and agreed. It's interesting that 367 didn't have an opinion. I had some ideas of that, but that's not our job right now. Our job is to get the organized, the data organized, but with other people, like the data, okay, so then we have other recommendations or other survey questions today that we can perhaps improve if we want. Okay. And this one we did, okay. Did this, no, I'm going the wrong way, that's the problem. Come on. Okay, for all non-freehand, this is what I would recommend we do. We already discussed that. For all freehand, I recommend we do this. Again, we might choose to ignore the cumulative line because it doesn't have as much impact as it does if you're doing a manufacturing problem. Pie charts. I love pie charts, however, they're very colorful, but sometimes they don't, particularly when the pies become about the same size instead of trying to determine which one's more has a higher impact. I would recommend we go to a greater chart. Scatter bar charts here on the left. I recommend we shift that to a greater chart. So again, it has a higher impact to the outcome. So how do we handle the freehand original response? This part of this we already discussed. I believe that the freehand question should have its own appendix. In each of my subcharts, organized by option 1 to option 3, along with the appendix. So as a body of the presentation, we have the question and we have the summary of the results. And then we say see appendix X, Y, Z for the details. Okay. Okay. As I stated that we can improve the regular chart by organizing them a little bit more. Regular chart for all freehands. And here's the data. Okay, we have 23 form questions in the survey. Okay, they're listed here by their output number, not by the paper copy. Okay, the second page, there's number 38. It should be 39. I've done that one. That's why that is grayed out. We've also now done 35, which is additional recreation activities, which takes 41 pages of data. And I've done additional entertainment or cultural activities, which is 32 pages of data. So I think now I got to go back to my Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go to okay, here's recreation. Okay. Here we go. Okay, this is again one of the small ones. So you can see all three, again, you have the response numbers there, the actual response that was given to us, and then the quantities on the right hand side. So down the bottom, you see smudges, you see cross-country skiing, rec center, you see horses, nature, motocross, gardens. So people said, I don't want any more. And then some of the higher ones are. Got some non-applicable festivals, dog park. And hiking was the number one. Okay, and it goes on the pages. Let's look at the summary for that. Okay, so hiking had 134 responses, and there were a total of 1,398 responses for this particular question. So swimming or team sports was second. And if you go to the team sports tab, I believe I did a summary over here on the right. With football was number one, basketball was number two, adult sports was three, soccer was not 11, and lacrosse was 9. So I did a summary within a summary. So, and so we only had 16 categories here. So we had more than that. 16 categories to get to 80%. Okay. So now I'll go back again to my chart. Will you stop here? Yeah. And go back to here. Okay. Okay, so here is the cumulative response and quantity Pareto on page 1. Okay, you can see hiking at 134, biking, swimming, parks. The lake got a lot of responses, pickleball, entertainment, TV, tennis, so on and so forth. So obviously, we'll probably want to look at the higher ones to the left. It's having the highest impact if we want to implement.
So Norm, these are just responses. This isn't negative or positive. These are just responses under those categories.
That's correct.
So you would get the detail in the tabs down below.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And this is page 2. Again, I think we need 2 pages because it's just so many. And adult recreation was the last one. Okay. Again, we probably don't need this right away. Now I'm going to skip over. I was going to show you the Excel spreadsheets for the third one, but I'm going to skip over that. This is the entertainment and cultural activities. How do we organize them? So, again, the first chart, the number one response for all three was fireworks, parades, fairs, things of that nature. Okay. Number 2 was music events. Some symphony, but mainly more cuts. Okay. Number 3 was general recreation. Theater was number 4. Movies was pretty bad. And there was one for just pure entertainment. Arts and crafts was 63, and so on and so forth. The farmers market did here. Okay. And farm events, made this one. There's several lower business, we have the records. We have small responses that we don't need anymore. Okay. And there were a few here, dance was 8, shopping was 8. Some people, I guess, have entertainment, shopping. That's it. Okay. Okay. So that's the end of my presentation. If we should discuss whether we want to proceed with this, I've already asked Ken to send me the file on school question. Got some, I think, pretty good ideas on how to present that. If we go backwards to these 2 charts, if we want to continue on, I personally don't want to do all of this stuff. Okay, Ken, I think somebody in your organization should do one or two, because I don't think, once you know how, they know how to do this, you're gonna just spit out the data and not someone else. We looked at other surveys, and that's the other question, and long list, not organized. It almost uses, okay. So, big one left to do is, we have types of development, it's 35 pages. And the last one, I agree with you, Ken, 15 pages of data, but that's totally freehand and very difficult. After I do the schools, unless Patrick Dunn wants to do the schools, I'll be glad to try and maybe make some substantive question 42, which is totally free. So that's my presentation. Now, bring in your comments.
I think it's amazing. And probably we should have never had 23 form questions in the survey. Maybe that's one lesson to be learned, but we've already gone down that road. Yeah,
Now, I want to warn you that this is not a short process. The first one I did was the lakes, 41 pages. I had to learn the process of how I wanted to organize it. And I actually lost some of the work I did because I was working in 2 files. And one was saved automatically, one didn't. I lost some of my work. But it took me 25 hours to do the first. The second one I did was recreation. It took me about 15 minutes. That's better, and it was easy. And the third one took me about 10. And I built in some efficiencies, some continuous process improvement. So it's you need to have your Excel skills have to be at least maybe. You have to do some advanced sorting. It's probably the most difficult thing to do. And you screw up the sorting, you screw up your data. The rest is cut and paste.
so when are you gonna put on the training session for John Goddard, the Ken Camilla, and someone else over at PVPC? Ken, have you got any number crunchers over there?
I would have to, we have a data team, so presumably they may have an idea of how to do this type of process maybe more efficiently. I will say that we'll probably have to re-examine the scope based on the way that Norm has identified 25 hours at most for one question. What I will say is, obviously, I think there is an opportunity. I think the way that Norm has presented it obviously is meaningful to those who will read it, right? The audience is the ones that are going to pick up your survey report and say, how, let's see how the town has presented this. And, in a way that is different than probably typically a survey would be presented, which is usually, as Norm had identified, pie charts, tables. They would be strewn through the plan document. This may be helpful for maybe some of the questions as it pertains to certain elements. Not all of this data is going to, I don't know if all of this data is going to be particularly helpful. I think we're gonna get some good responses from focus groups. We have what we have as far as raw data from the survey, as well as what we're going to get from the visioning session. That's going to give us a good idea generally of sentiment from the town. I think Norm did a very commendable job. And when I saw the initial products, I was like, oh boy, I was speechless because I didn't know how to respond, because then I was like, oh boy, I don't know how to do this. I think it's one of those things too, that you're going to have this report forever. Norm was right that there are 353 pages of raw data. I think that I identified in the past that possibly something like a word cloud may be helpful for certain instances. It won't necessarily, it's a way to show the data, both when you're trying to share data at the community meetings, at the focus groups, in the plan. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just more of a comment. I don't necessarily have a way to address how this can be incorporated more fully. It's definitely not something that it's the most comprehensive survey report or a way to present the survey that I would have ever seen in, you know, the history of surveys that I've looked at and survey reports.
Okay, so timing wise, as we move forward, if the committee would want to try or would want to see this approach or use this approach, I think it could probably be very important, at least at the end, to have this be able to be presented in the planning document itself. I mean, there's probably no way, there is no way between now and when we have our visioning sessions. The only thing is, we could use the results of the visioning sessions to maybe influence what questions we would concentrate on as far as putting into the Parado format, if we can't do them all. And again, you know, it's a time factor, I guess. And so we have to sort of keep that in mind as you look at the 20 free form questions that we have, and they're listed with the number of pages of data that, you know, is input. So if it turns out there's a really important item, say question 12, future growth, do we need to pull that together into the Parado format? You know, if we can't do them all, can we, after the visioning sessions, have some sense of what is important to people and what people want to be able to see and understand in the master plan? Because that, you know, the master plan is going to provide the basis for different or parts of the town that different departments or committees, commissions, you know, to go forward with and put energy and effort into whatever turns out people are interested in and want. More comments?
I think it was a great presentation. I'm pretty impressed. I think when we have it out there and just anybody from the community comes in and looks at it, they're going to understand it pretty clearly. But I think just the time wise, I don't know, time versus value, if it's worth doing it on everything like you were saying. And maybe we can find certain things to narrow it down on the bigger topics once we figure out what the bigger topics are.
I think it's great. I mean, when I'm reading through the, how many 100-page report it was, I was wishing that there was some format of this data, like the way you've done it. And I just, I'm thinking, I mean, to a certain extent, isn't you're obviously going with the big hitters in terms of most pages of data, but those are where the people were most engaged with involved data. So I think we want to kind of, if we're going to do something, that would focus on the ones that have, unfortunately, the ones that but those are the ones that do, at least the first kind. You know, the ones would say 2 pages in the
So you'd focus on the ones that had more number of pages.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that I haven't gone through the
Right.
question to see if there's some reason why the data would be, you know, extra large or something. It seems like types of development.
And the schools had a pretty high number, right? I guess.
Norm's got, he's got, you know, an Excel file or a format that kind of works, so, I wouldn't mind, I'll take a step, something. Did you, as you're going through to develop the categories, you just kind of start going through response, say, this is one, this is that category, and then you get something, well, through them, any other categories got to raise, I guess, start a new category, or?
Well, yes, and then you'll decide, well, there aren't enough responses to fit in that one, so you scratch that one off. So later you'll say, well,
It's probably the most.
I'm gonna divide this category into this. And
Probably the most
and
common.
one thing you have to be careful of is you can't put your own bias into it. When I was doing recreation, there were a lot of cultural answers. I put them into a not applicable file. Okay, and it got up to be like 146. And then I said, well, wait a minute. I think cultural is not related to recreational, but to the person that responded, it probably was. It's their recreation. It's a cultural event. And so then I took those all out and moved them elsewhere. Putting your own bias in the problem. But I'm willing to continue on. I'm glad to work with anybody that wants to try one. They can do it their own. I do want, I'll do school next. That's one that I think might have the biggest impact.
Schools, yeah, that I, yeah.
Yeah.
So would we have a small team? I mean, Dave, Spina, yourself, Norm, and maybe Ken, Camilla could come over.
Yeah.
One day, Ken, and sort of go through this maybe in November. And see how it goes. I mean, maybe the process will move along. And Mr. Goddard, so if we had 4,
I'd be happy to help out as well.
pardon?
I'd be happy to help out as well.
Excellent. Okay,
Yeah, as long as we're not on like a time restraint, because I definitely don't have time to dedicate to this right now, but potentially December,
Yeah.
when I have some more
Yeah.
time off, I work with Excel every day, but more pivot chart type things, but I think I could probably.
so we've got
Figure something.
Jessica Parker, Randy Brown, David Spina, Norm Cheever. That's less than 9 people, so you don't post it as a meeting.
Right.
You are a team, you're our data analysis team, and if Ken, Camilla could come over when there's time for a session of some kind, John Goddard, you know, maybe you could facilitate a room to meet in and sort of do a mini training session and see how it goes. What do you think, Ken?
Yeah, I think that I mean, I am due to come out to town hall, so we can pair I can do everything that I need to do in Southwick. You know, and include some time with Norm and the data team. Because as you are aware, I'm also drafting a couple of the chapters. So, you know, meetings with town employees, meetings with the planning board, the chair, the town planner. Those things are forthcoming. So yeah, definitely would love to spend a day there. And if that includes meeting with the data team, then we'll do that.
All right.
So this is a future topic on our agenda, but wouldn't the focus groups that we decide are important kind of dictate the order of which these should be completed? Wouldn't you want this graph ready for the focus group?
It would be helpful probably if it was available. That's the next item on the agenda here under new business, was to sort of go over the standard focus groups and try to set up a process to identify people to be on those groups and somehow schedule into November those groups doing their thing, so to speak. Ken, can you speak to that some?
Sure. I think that in the past, my experience with focus groups, you probably would have, it's not necessarily something that you want very open to the public. I think you may have your specialists within town government, within the town residents, that, let's say, if we're looking at one of the typical focus groups, which is transportation and public facilities and services, you probably would want the DPW director and maybe any groups within town that speak to those various types of things. If there happens to be a data point, they probably would have either got it from materials that are readily available on the website. If one of the goals is to do the way that Norm had presented those particular open-ended questions, then we can do that. But we do have survey questions, and we'll have some input from the visioning sessions that we can rely on that will help inform the conversation. Focus groups in general are pretty open. There may be some leading questions. It's similar almost to a SWOT exercise in that you're going to be identifying the various things within town that are working, that need assistance, and this is very specific to those various focus groups and topics. So I think with regards to the data, that will be available to those that want to partake in that, but presumably you would be identifying people within town to sit on those. They can be open to the public, but it also, I don't think is something that you want to have, like you want to have the experts that can speak to maybe some of these particular things, especially with the transportation, public facilities, the more infrastructure related housing and
Can
economic.
you list those, or you don't?
I will share this because I'm reading off something that I prepared. So the top four were ones that I've done in other communities. We've paired elements together. So transportation and public facilities and services, housing and economic development. As you know, too, housing is, the town is also partaking in a housing production plan. So maybe it may make sense to make housing its own and economic development its own. I think you've identified economic development as a major theme in the survey. Cultural, historic, natural, and open space resources, sustainability, and climate change resilience. And then there was a topic that was identified with regards to youth that I recall. And these were a couple of questions that we used when we were doing this in East Longmeadow. It was paired with some media and some using Southwest, or not Southwick TV, East Longmeadow TV, where there were interviews, and it was a program that was provided after the fact. So it was a focus group in that it was the town planner at the time and the chair of the planning committee, the master plan committee, in addition to the folks at cable TV, prepared a product which was a short video that had youth involved in asking each other questions and doing some cute skits within the that product. So these can be as flexible as you'd like. This is what I have found works as far as, because there are very specific elements within your master plan. However, there are opportunities to either gauge certain populations or certain topics or make those of a focus. But this is initially my first stab based on, I think, some of the conversations that have happened in the committee.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have housing separate from the economic development. Because we are, trying to have a housing plan also prepared out of this process. Transportation, public facilities and services, I think that would be okay altogether. Cultural, historic, natural and open space resources. Oh, that was the other, and sustainability. Climate change. Climate change. Resilience. On the youth area, I was thinking, and I don't know if any contacts have been made with the school department to have some sort of interaction with the junior high level and then the senior high level. Because we wanted to try to get a little more input on that on the younger side of things.
I think there's a chance that we could do it there on premise. Instead of trying to wrangle them to come to us, any chance we go to them?
Yeah, that's a good point. We should be going over there to them. It's a matter of timing and coordination.
And getting the permission to free them up from classes maybe, or maybe after school. But
Yeah.
we can make it convenient for them, I think we get better participation.
Any comments on, I mean, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 focus
Seven.
groups.
7 if you split out housing.
Oh, you're thinking 2 under the
Oh, I'm
youth?
sorry, yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So youth would have 2 subs, junior high and senior high. Ken, is there any sense of time? I mean, if we got this done before Christmas break or whatever they call it.
I think it's doable. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, I'll be away for 5 days. But these can happen during the day. Especially if they like transportation and public facilities and services, that might involve mostly town staff. And if you can get someone from the public or residents from the public that feel like they can speak to those issues, you can schedule that during the day. Some can be in the evening. I would suggest maybe the housing be in the evening because that one needs to be a little more amplified based on what you mentioned, Marcus, that it is specific to the housing production plan and the engagement around that. But yeah, I think this can definitely be done before the holidays. You can maybe spread it within 3 weeks and just have various daytime, evening, or we can choose a day and literally have all of these focus groups, or at least the 5 in a day, an hour and a half or 2 over a span of 2 days.
So for efficiency, I'm thinking if Mr. Goddard sent out an email to the committee with these 6, actually 5, the youth would be a kind of a separate area. But transportation, public facilities and services, housing, economic development, cultural, historic, natural resource, open space, and sustainability, climate change, resilience. Send out those 5, and then people could submit names and some of them are gonna be maybe pretty obvious, maybe others not so much, but names of people you feel are experts in any of these areas. And then we'll have those names. And we'll then somehow screen through those and come up with a reasonable number for a focus group. In other words, if there's 20 names, that might be too big. I don't know, Ken, what is the size of a focus group in your experience?
I've seen where more than 10 people who are like actively talking can get unwieldy. So I would say to keep it under 10.
Okay, but we'll, get the universe first.
Right.
And then we'll try to get it down to something that's manageable.
Excuse me?
So hello?
Yep. Is school going under transportation, public facilities and services?
Ken, do you include the school system under that category?
When we did the two recent master plans, we had folks from the school committee also attend that meeting.
So they would be participating, they could participate in that group, plus have the focus group on youth. Does that answer your question, Dory?
Yeah, I was just thinking, trying to maximize scheduling if we went to a school committee meeting as one of the focus groups, and if we went to the economic development committee meeting, that they have their regularly scheduled meetings, can we be an agenda item on their meetings?
So noted. That's a pretty efficient way, since they would be meeting anyway. The only thing is we'd have to get them to agree to whatever amount of time is needed, whether it's an hour or hour and a half, you know what I mean? Ken, do you have an idea too, as to how long a session might last?
So these lasted an hour and a half, but I think because we tried to put two topics together, that made sense. Presumably, if you were to identify committees within town that already are charged with some of these activities and maybe thinking of things like that, like an economic development committee or the school committee, I think if you were to work with someone on those committees to identify some time for the master plan advisory committee to kind of do an exercise that may be 45 minutes. I think that is really efficient, especially if, it would just be an added value, I think, if that's something that, is explored further.
Okay, so the process will be Mr. Goddard will send out the focus group names, and people on the committee submit names of people you feel should be involved in these. Are people okay with the last one, sustainability, climate change, and resilience, as far as something to be discussed by a focus group?
Well, I guess my question was, looking at it, not that it's a bad topic, I think it's a fantastic topic, who do you include? Right, so when we're trying to call in the town's experts on some of these other ones, when we're looking at sustainability and climate change, who are the town experts in Southwick that we bring into something like that?
Right off the top of my head, I would say emergency something committee, I forget what it's called now. Could you help me, Mr. Moulton?
LEPC
Yes,
or
local,
emergency management?
yeah,
SEMA?
yeah, the emergency management types.
That's kind of after. the
Who are
disaster
concerned
already
about
happened, right?
flooding and, oh,
I think that they're reactionary, and
okay,
we want someone looking from forward planning standpoint.
Isn't that Mr. Goddard?
Well, I think maybe Mr. Goddard, but also looking at Brady, I don't know if from a DPW perspective, we're looking at any sustainability issues moving forward with like traffic lights and lighting in town and.
Yeah, culvert signs, and I would even bring Concom to that as well. So I think there's enough departments that could be involved.
anybody's been involved with the green community activity, trying to, look at Southwick and how do we become, I don't think we are yet. I don't think we met that, criteria for green community designation or whatever.
Jet.
Yeah.
Get there.
So whoever's been kind of inputting into that process would be some good people probably to have.
Just going back to that sustainability and climate change, so about 4 years ago, the town was designated as an MVP community, municipal vulnerability preparedness community. So that opened us up to some grants, which actually we got a project that's ongoing now as a wall replacement through that program. Anyway, as part of that process, we had again this CEO call here, we had department heads from almost every department head talking about climate change and how that may impact their operations. So we could even rehash that. I could have notes and bring that into.
That'd be
this
great,
committee,
yeah.
and maybe that would check that box off.
Yeah.
Without even having to go through the whole process once again.
It might make it an efficient process if you had some of those people that were involved in that, and plus the results of it, then you've got it available to put into the master plan.
I would also be curious, like members of the community that are involved in those types of industries, right? So
As their
it's-
vocation.
Exactly,
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's volunteering or employed by the town, but somebody that has that kind of experience in the community that we could pull in. Is there anybody that's in the solar panel business? Is there anybody in wind production? Is there anybody in, greenscaping or what have you? Get their involvement because they work it every day.
Yeah.
I don't know those people, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a couple in town.
Yeah, whoever has knowledge of those people, it's good, yeah. All right, so that'll be the process, and we'll still have to work through dates in November and early December to come up with the time to actually have those sessions. Okay, let's see, the rest of the agenda. We have some minutes to sign. John, did you have those to pass around? We approved 2 sets at the last meeting. We're going to defer the September 15th minutes to the next meeting. And the other item, committee member comments. I know Mr. Hanson had submitted an email wondering, where are we in this process and when is it going to end? No, sort of, have an idea looking out ahead as to what's coming up and so forth. Bert, could you?
And maybe in the interest of time, maybe just put a couple of questions out there for everybody to be thinking about, but yeah, okay, so we've had the survey, we're having the visioning, we're having the focus groups. What's after that? We'll produce a report, of course. And then how do we get it out to the public? I asked Marcus, do we need to go to town meeting? If you say, no, the planning board groups it, we're good, but how do we we have all this public involvement going on. How do we get the final result out to them? Is it some meetings? Is it a special town meeting? How do we do that? And part 2 of that same question is, how do we make this well, sustainable, to use that word, I mean. Yeah, we don't want that, this plan, all this work that we've done, to just be a website page somewhere or a pile of paper on somebody's, shelf. How do we keep going?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think, we rely on Ken maybe to provide us with some of that information. We have to start developing our next, contract, I guess you'd say, because we do have additional funds we've received, which we haven't allocated, so to speak, to specific tasks. But I know there was an implementation phase at the end of all this. But as far as the approval process, I would envision some sort of a formal presentation at a planning board meeting that would be open to the public. And it should be a separate meeting, not just a regular planning board meeting where they're approving things, projects and all that kind of thing. It would just be it would be dedicated to the master plan. So they could be totally informed because they'll have to vote to accept or whatever, accept with conditions, but hopefully not, that, they would see this as an excellent document. And with Norm's analysis, they're going to be totally blown away. And anyway, and so that would kind of be how it would work. Now, the timing of that, I don't know when it would happen, whether it be February, March, whatever, but we need to kind of pull that together, like we said. And I think, Ken, rely on you to look back at the contract and, see where that takes us and then how much more we would add on to it. So we'd put it on as agenda item. Maybe even no, you're going to be traveling, I guess, right? Our next meeting is the 3rd of November.
I'll be there.
You'll be here. Okay. So let's say we put that on as a new agenda item or item under new business. And we'll come up with some term to describe it. Okay, any other committee member comments?
I do.
Oh, sorry. Dory?
While you're talking about meetings, we had talked about having meetings on the 3rd Thursday. Are we not doing that anymore? Are we going to first Thursdays?
We're doing it twice a month, the 1st and the 3rd. This month, because of the 2 sessions, visioning sessions, we wouldn't do another one in October. So you're saying November 3rd is not really what we would normally do for a meeting?
I just thought we were doing once a week, 3rd Thursdays.
Once
So
a month, third Thursday.
Yeah. So I'm trying to plan out, these beginning of the
Okay.
month ones are hard because it's month end close. So I'm trying to
How
figure
does
out.
how's the 3rd Thursday come out date wise? Is that hitting close to Thanksgiving?
Well, it's the week before Thanksgiving.
November 17th, Thanksgiving's the 24th.
The week before.
So we could hold off and do it November 17th.
I'm available that day. I'm back by then.
Sounds reasonable then. We'll shift that to November 17th.
And then in December, is it just December 15th, which is the 3rd Thursday?
Yeah, I think that would be okay.
Not on November 3rd?
No. November 17th and December 15th. Okay, Norm had his hand up here too.
I have a question for Ken on Thursday and Friday and Saturday of next week. I'm gonna answer the 4 questions in our facilitator groups. Do you want those prioritized to come back to the main group?
Yes, so it's the four main questions: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So presumably every breakout room, whether it's virtual or in person, will have answers to those. And typically we put aside 15 minutes for that. But as facilitators, there would be the opportunity, if you feel like your group has already talked through that and doesn't have any additional items to add, that you can move on to some optional questions, which I think it's always helpful to get some additional engagement. But those are the four most important ones. And what will end up happening is, a report basically from whatever is submitted by the facilitators, either on a big flip chart or via the Word document. And then a summary will be provided for those.
I think Norm was asking,
I'm still a little confused.
yeah, I think he's interested in a priority of, like, if you have a whole sheet full of strengths, does the group sort of take a poll and say, which are the most important ones?
I leave it to the facilitators. I think that's been an exercise in some groups. Some groups have done that. Usually what ends up happening is it is a report. And I think when we did this in both East Longmeadow and Blandford, the advisory committee reviewed the document and then prioritized based on the appearance of those items showing up on the individual reports. So I think if you want to do that exercise, and if we want to say that's going to be what we're going to do, then maybe we should agree on that for those four questions, if there's a priority of the top 3 or 3 to 5 of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that we should identify those. So then if we're all doing that, then I think that makes it helpful, especially when we also summarize at the end of the meeting, at the end of the breakout rooms.
I don't want to complicate it, but in my past, we used hot dots. You gave each person in the group 5 dots and said, put them on the 5 that you like. Can't double up on any particular one, but have you ever used that?
Yeah, that is what I wanted to do in the and I'm still trying to navigate. I wanted to for the in-person engagement with the easels. There are maps that have been produced, particularly maps that will go into the plan, and as just maps for reference. But to use those for both identifying parts of the town where you may be able to address one of those SWOTs, and then being able to pinpoint where in town that particular strength, weakness, opportunity, or threat may exist. Also having some questions that you could put dots on. I have dots, I have plenty of dots, and I will bring the dots, but I think that, yeah, if we want to do it with dots, or we just want to do it as a collective voice with our breakout groups, and just circle the top 3 by voice, or by voice vote, or hands. I think I leave it up to the committee, but if you want to do dots, we can do dots. I think dots are nice too.
It's people moving.
All right.
The dots almost create, it's a self-creating Pareto.
Right. You're all right.
No, exactly.
Well, it gives people a feeling of power and participation. Yeah, so. Okay,
I just have one comment.
yes,
So
Jessica.
what time should we all be here for these meetings? Because I assume you want to get started at the start time, and we probably all need to set up and powwow on being on the same page. So what time?
I'm planning to be there an hour before it's start time, so
So 5:30 for the Thursday session, 5:30 PM for the Thursday evening session. And 8 AM for the Saturday session, which starts at 9 o'clock. And that would be good for the facilitators / recorders to kind of team up.
Yeah, and kind of just.
Yeah, because we've got 6 people each day. So we should have 2 in each of the breakout groups. So, you know, people can decide, I want to be a recorder, I want to be the facilitator. And who's going to team up with whom,
Mhm.
so. All right, it's going to be an exciting week. And enjoy the holiday Columbus Day weekend. I would.
Ken,
Oh, go ahead.
I have a technical question before these meetings.
Yeah.
I don't know how to change our name in a Zoom meeting, so if you want me to instruct people to change their labels, can someone like help with that?
We actually have that turned off in
Okay,
our profile. We can have people change it. We can turn that off per meeting, but we had some problems early on in the pandemic with people getting quite creative with the names that they were using on Zoom. So
Gotcha.
now we don't let people change it mid-meeting. And so it's a host or co-host needs to change it. So if, oh, I'm not the host or co-host, but if make her a co-host, then you'll see that you could change your name.
Sorry, we don't use Zoom for anything other than master planning.
There's usually a little 3 dots that you could change your name, but we turn that off on the town's meetings. It's an option. So did you make her a co-host? Yeah, so if you click on it now, you should be able to click those 3 dots and it probably says change name. Or
So
rename.
I'm coming down to Southwick on Tuesday to meet with John at some point. I think we probably should navigate what those final details for the Zoom meeting are going to be, especially if if you still want to not give that flexibility with fixing names, figuring out how to do that. It would be the co-host, the hosts doing it. But yeah, I think we just need to figure out what that process is going to look like.
Sure.
Yeah, I see that John changed my name, but I still don't know how to change my own name. So someone want to just shoot me a little how-to sheet on that, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. David Laurie made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. McWilliams. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Abstaining?
9 o'clock.
Thank you, people.
Thank you.
You did a great job.